Every Sunday, I release a review on an Atari video game for you all, and they seem to do really well. Well, for my channel anyway. So what better way to screw it all up than by doing something different and wild? That's right, today we aren't reviewing a video game at all, but rather two controllers sent to me by HUGO, of OGHUGO's Retro Mod Shop. These are both 2-button controllers, meant for use on the Atari 7800, 2600, and the 2600 Plus. They might work on other consoles and computers, but hey, this is the Atari Network. We only care about Atari stuff. And I know there are Atari computers that could probably use this, but I don't have access to those. So I'm sorry. It's a growing network, we'll get there. But getting back to the topic at hand, is the 2-button Competition Pro and 2-button Gamepad from OGHUGO's eBay store and website worth picking up? Let's find out. But first, I just want to inform you all that I received these units for review from OGHUGO's Retro Mod Shop in a new segment I like to call Atari Network's Full Disclosure. These were sent to me for the purpose of review by HUGO. All the views and opinions in this video are mine and are the product of testing and a little bit of research. I didn't and would never agree to give positive scores in exchange for products or reimbursement, because the Atari Network is a channel of the people, for the people, by... I'm a people, so I guess by the people. Anyway, if you're interested in the products included in this video, then please see the description and pinned comment for links to them. Thank you, and enjoy the review. HUGO sent me an email asking me if I'd be willing to review his products on the channel, and I love giving members of the Atari community a chance to show off what they're doing. People are always looking for Atari 7800 and 2600 Plus 2-button compatible controllers, and these could possibly be good ones. But looking at the pictures prior to receiving them, I couldn't help but to feel underwhelmed. They look like controllers I had experienced prior from Bratwurst at the Atari Age forums and Retro Game Boys. But still, I figured at best they could be another product for people to enjoy, and at worst they would be shoddy knockoffs. But I have to say, when I received the package and opened it, I was pretty surprised by the contents within. Again, I figured these were going to be similar to what I experienced before, but they really aren't. Well, not completely. The 2-button Competition Pro joystick is nearly the same size as a standard CX-40 joystick, and while it's not something I personally tried to track down before, I couldn't help but to feel that it just made sense. Lots of people are familiar with the stock standard 2600 joysticks, and I feel like it's part of the nostalgia and charm of playing Atari games. So, keeping close to this form factor while applying arcade-style joysticks and buttons works well, in design at the very least. The other controller, the 2-button joypad, was more in line with what I expected, and I'll comment on that one later. But first, let's jump into OGHUGO's 2-button Competition Pro stick. The buttons and stick felt familiar to what others have provided me in the past, and that's not a bad thing. You can expect Ed Ladin quality here, but the price is a third or even a quarter of what some of Ed Ladin's offerings cost. Most people like to make their arcade sticks a bit bulkier, and I can't help but to feel that it's to replicate that arcade feel more. But what if it isn't a major concern for you? What if you just want a quality arcade-style controller in a small package? Well, then you might want to pay attention to this controller. Everything felt clicky and responsive, as expected. There is something about moving an arcade joystick and pressing arcade buttons that just sounds so nice. I proceeded to test the controller on my AV-modded Atari 7800 Pro system, my Atari 2600 Plus, and my stock Atari 2600 Junior consoles. It worked as expected with each of them, and I had no disappointing surprises. I tested the stick with Midnight Magic, Pole Positions 1 and 2, Ikiri Warriors for the 7800, Kung Fu Master, Food Fight, Joust, Air Raiders, Asteroids for the 7800, and many more. It's clear that the 2-button Competition Pro feels best for arcade-style games, as I would say most sticks using these components would. It worked great for both the 1-button and 2-button games, and I had little to no disappointment the whole time I tested. There was no delay in the inputs, no weird moments where my characters would move in the wrong direction, or anything like that. Overall, it was a solid experience, and one I would recommend, especially if you like arcade-quality stuff in a small form factor. If you're watching this video and think this might be cool to try, then I can honestly say, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Now, for the game reviews, I normally do a score out of 5, but I'm not going to do that for controllers and hardware. I'm just going to do a flat recommend or not recommend. And I have no hesitation to say that if you like this kind of controller, then you're going to get something that works great and will not disappoint you. I felt that OGHUGO's 2-button Competition Pro joystick is an easy recommendation for all of you wanting a controller like this. But if you're like me, you might rather have a gamepad, and if that's the case, well, then grab a gamepad instead. And luckily for you, OGHUGO's Retro Mod Shop has you covered there too. For years, I've recommended Retro Game Boy's 2-button 7800 controller because it's going to be familiar to most people who played Atari's competition in this era, and it works well for a lot of the library. There has been some competition for them on eBay and Etsy for some time, but I really never tried any of those. Hugo's version is essentially the same, but I really like the design of it. It's all 3D printed material, but the Fuji on the front looks slick, and lets you know right away that this baby is meant for Atari stuff. But unfortunately, I can't give it a fair review because this version that I got was a prototype. So what does that mean? Well, it's currently available on OGHUGO's eBay store, and unlike the version I received, that one appears to have resin buttons. The 3D buttons on the one I received made it feel cheap and not as comfortable as I would have hoped. I tested it with the same games and consoles of the previous controller, and again, it worked with no major issues. But occasionally I would have problems with diagonals on the D-pad. That is to say, instead of going on a diagonal, my character would just move in a singular direction. It didn't happen all the time, but it happened enough to be noticeable and a slight annoyance. But again, my version of the controller is only a prototype and used the 3D printed buttons, and it also had a prototype circuit board. When I talked to Hugo, he made it clear that these issues should probably be taken care of with the resin buttons and the new circuit board that he had printed. And to be honest, I made it pretty far in Akiri Warriors using this gamepad, even with the diagonal issues. So other than what I just stated, it still performs pretty good. Given that this prototype was sent to me a few short weeks ago, I was pretty shocked to see the full version already available on his store. But I was even more surprised by the price. Retro Game Boys usually sell theirs for $41.95 American, plus $5 or $6 in shipping. By the time you tack on tax, the total is a little over $50. But OGHUGO's is going for $34.99 with free shipping. Even with tax, it's a little more than $12 cheaper. I'm not sure how he was pulling off this voodoo in his pricing, but I'm all for it. Still, since my version was a prototype, I'm just going to leave everything at this. I can see that the new version definitely has the resin buttons, which would have fixed my first issue, and the new circuit board is supposed to fix my other issue with the diagonals. It's also priced well below what the competition is, so if you're looking for a controller like this, at the most affordable price, then this is going to be your go-to unit. And if you do get it, please let me and everybody else know in the comments below if the issue with the diagonals was fixed. Okay guys, I have to say that I think OGHUGO's Retro Mod Shop is putting out some cool 7800 accessories. The price is right, and I think they are right on the money with designs and controllers that Atari users will be interested in. Remember, I'll have links to both their website and their eBay store down below if you're interested. With all that said, I want to hear from you guys now. Do these controllers or any of the products Hugo offers at his store look good to you? Have you purchased anything from them before? And do you agree with my thoughts on the controllers? Let me know down in the comments below. With all that said, I'm the 7800 Pro Gamer, official controller tester here at the Atari Network, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay classy, Atarians.